My name is Graham Larkin. I'm 34 years old, and for the first time in my life, I thought I was finally safe. I'm not talking about wealth or luxury. I mean safety. The kind that comes with knowing you earned your place in the world. That you built something brick by brick, hour by hour, that no one could take from you. For me, that something was a small beat-up house just outside Spokane. It had peeling paint, questionable plumbing, and the kind of lawn that made neighbors look away. But it was mine, paid for with 10 years of double shifts at the emergency animal hospital, skipped vacations, and grocery lists that knew the price of every off-brand item. Then, one cold Tuesday evening, my father showed up with my sister Sierra and a sentence that wiped out all that peace in under 10 seconds. "We've been talking, and we think it's time you gave the house to Sierra. For the kids." He said it gently, like I was being offered a noble cause, a family sacrifice. But what I heard was, "It's time you give up the only thing you built, because someone else ruined everything they were given." I wish I could say I exploded. I didn't. I just looked at them, and then I reached for a folder I'd kept sealed for 5 years. They thought they came to take something, but they had no idea what was coming. People like Sierra don't understand silence. To her, silence means something's wrong, someone's sulking, a vibe's been killed. But to me, silence is the only thing that ever felt like progress. For over a decade, I lived quietly. I rented the cheapest apartments on the ugliest blocks. I drove a car with a busted AC and one headlight that only worked if you hit a bump just right. My coworkers at the emergency animal hospital joked that I lived like a monk. They weren't wrong. I was 23 when I made the decision. I'd buy a home. No handouts, no co-signers. Just grit, overtime pay, and the stubborn belief that I could create something stable in a world where everything, even family, felt conditional. I watched Sierra blow through thousands chasing whatever pyramid scheme or personal brand she was into that month. One week, she was selling CBD candles. The next, she was a mindset coach, trying to monetize TikTok reels of her toddlers mispronouncing affirmations. Meanwhile, I worked back-to-back shifts, sometimes going 36 hours without a real break. I learned how to extract fishing hooks from dogs' throats. I learned how to tell someone gently that their cat didn't make it. I learned how to stretch a $50 grocery budget across 2 weeks without eating a single fast food meal. And I saved. Every single month. While Sierra lived rent-free in our parents' guest house with all 3 of her kids, I lived with roommates who came and went. Some were decent. One tried to brew his own kombucha in the shower and nearly set the apartment on fire. I stuck it out. Because I had a goal. That goal finally took shape 3 years ago when I walked into a sun-bleached, half-renovated ranch-style house and saw it for what it could be, not what it was. Cracked tiles, peeling ceiling fan, the scent of old paint and lemon cleaner. But it had bones, and I had grit. The day I closed, I sat on the cold, bare floor with a 6-pack of cheap beer and a frozen pizza. I didn't post about it, didn't call anyone. I just sat there, alone, in the house I bought by being boring, disciplined, and invisible. And it was the happiest I'd ever felt. Until Sierra and Dad showed up with their idea. It was a Tuesday. I'd just gotten off a brutal double shift. 3 emergency surgeries, 1 euthanasia, and a shattered wrist from trying to stop a Rottweiler from bleeding out after being hit by a truck. I wasn't thinking about anything except collapsing onto my thrift store couch and maybe microwaving some pasta. Then my phone rang. It was my dad. "Just a quick call," he said. "Wanted to swing by and talk." My gut tightened. We weren't the drop-by kind of family. We were the speak at holidays and pretend everything's fine type, but I was too tired to argue. 20 minutes later, 2 cars pulled into my driveway. One was Dad's dark blue Lexus, the one he bought for the family, but somehow Sierra was always driving. The other was a leased white SUV I didn't recognize, until Sierra stepped out in 4-inch heels, balancing a coffee in one hand and her phone in the other, already filming some kind of story. They didn't knock. They just came in. Sierra immediately wrinkled her nose. "God, Graham, this furniture is so basic. You should really think about white walls. Natural light is everything." She was walking around like she was touring a rental she already assumed she'd get. Her phone panned across my kitchen, as she muttered about potential content spaces and how Jaden would love this as a streaming nook. Dad stayed quiet until we sat. Sierra took over the armchair like it was her throne. I sat on the edge of the couch, sweat still clinging to my uniform shirt. I should have known better. "So," Dad said, clasping his hands, "your sister's been going through a lot lately?" Sierra let out a fake laugh. "Oh, stop, Dad. I'm just pivoting. Evolving my business model." I didn't respond. I just waited. Dad continued. "We've been thinking. This house is a bit much for just you. And Sierra's got the kids. And you know how tough it is raising 3 little ones. She needs stability." I blinked. "Excuse me?" He nodded like he was explaining taxes. "You're young, single, your job is flexible. You could find a nice apartment near work." Sierra chimed in, still recording. "And I could make this house a brand hub, The lighting here is perfect for product shoots. The guest house is killing my engagement metrics." I stared at them both. Then I said very slowly, "You want me to give my house to Sierra?" Dad leaned forward. "Think of it as family support." Sierra smiled. "It's not like you're using all the space." I looked at the man who once told me money didn't grow on trees when I asked for soccer cleats in 8th grade. "You're not serious." Then came the real threat. Dad shifted his tone, calm, firm, rehearsed. "If you can't help your sister, well, maybe it's time we reconsider some parts of the estate plan." That's when everything in me snapped into focus. Because now, it wasn't just about a house. It was about a lifetime of being overlooked. I didn't shout, didn't curse. I just stood up, walked into my home office, and came back holding a gray folder. Sierra barely looked up from her phone. "Rude," she muttered, still mid-Instagram scroll. I dropped the folder onto the coffee table. The thud made both of them flinch. "I've been waiting for this," I said. Dad furrowed his brow. "What's that?" "Records," I said. "Receipts, documentation. The kind of thing adults keep when they've spent 10 years watching their family throw money into a bottomless pit and call it love." I pulled out the first paper. The deed for the house Dad gave Sierra 6 years ago. 4-bedroom, 2-bath, gated neighborhood. Market value at the time was $760,000, I said. "She sold it 10 months later for $790,000. Sierra scoffed. "God, are you still bitter about that? That was forever ago." I didn't even glance at her. "She convinced you to let her liquidate a home for some wellness cafe meets podcast studio idea, and then the guy she was dating took the money and ran." Dad shifted uncomfortably. "It wasn't that simple." "No," I agreed. "It was worse. Because you knew better, and you still signed off." I laid out the next set of papers: failed business registrations, cash app transfers, a rental lease for a studio Sierra never opened. Then printouts of her Instagram posts bragging about new ventures, most of which disappeared a month later. "Look here," I said, tapping one photo. "That's the business retreat she took to Miami. Same week she defaulted on a credit card that was in your name." Sierra finally stopped filming. "Why are you bringing this up? That was years ago." "Because," I said calmly, "you're not asking for a second chance. You're asking for a second inheritance." Dad sat back, silent. "You gave her everything already. You let her burn it all to ash. And now you're standing in the one thing I built without a single dime from either of you, telling me to hand it over because she made poor choices with what she was already gifted?" Sierra's jaw clenched. "I have kids, Graham. I have boundaries." Dad tried the soft voice again. "It's just a house." I looked him dead in the eye. "No, it's everything I earned while you weren't looking." For the first time since they walked in, Sierra went quiet. No filters, no hashtags, just silence. And I let it sit, because for once, I wasn't the one being reasonable. I thought that would be the end of it. They left without another word. No dramatic exits, no screaming match, just silence and a slammed car door. I assumed the silence meant they'd finally understood. That even Dad, with all his blind spots, realized how far he'd pushed. But I was wrong. 3 days later, I was halfway through a dental extraction on an anxious golden retriever when my phone buzzed nonstop in my locker. I ignored it. Procedure came first. But when I finally checked it on my break, the first message made me drop my sandwich. "Dude, there's a moving truck in your driveway." "Mike, my neighbor?" The next one hit harder. "Are you okay? Your sister's here with some guys. They're unloading furniture into your house." Karen?" "Yes, that Karen, but a good one." My hands started shaking. I called Mike. "Tell me you're joking." "I wish. She said you were giving her the house. Brought movers, a locksmith, even some fake-looking papers. I didn't want to assume, but—" I hung up, told my supervisor there was a family emergency, and left. I ran every red light on the way home. When I pulled onto my street, I nearly clipped the back of the U-Haul parked in my driveway. Sierra was out front in yoga pants and full makeup, recording on her phone while two movers carried a neon pink couch up my steps. Her 3 kids were running wild through my front yard. One of them was drawing on my garage door with a marker. I slammed the brakes, stepped out of the car, and said nothing. Sierra finally noticed me. "Graham, you're early! You're totally ruining the reveal." I was going to film a whole moving into our forever home story. I didn't move. "Where's Dad?" She waved toward the porch. "Inside, talking to the locksmith." I walked in to find Dad handing a guy a clipboard. The locks were already half changed. He turned to me like I was the intruder. "Son, I understand you're upset, but we needed to help you see the bigger picture." I stared at him, then at the locksmith. "Did you verify ownership before changing my locks?" The guy hesitated. They showed me documents. Said it was a family property." "I suggest you stop right now." He looked at me, really looked, and froze. Then Sierra walked in, still filming. "Don't be dramatic. You're making this awkward. Think of the children." I pulled out my phone and opened my files. Deed, mortgage, tax records. All in my name. I held the screen up to the locksmith. "This is your legal client, not them." The color drained from his face. Sierra's expression twisted. "Seriously? You're really going to throw a fit in front of your niece and nephews?" Dad stepped in, raising his voice just enough. "Let's not escalate this. It's still your family." "You escalated it when you broke into my house." I scrolled down, hovered over the number I'd already saved for the local police department. Sierra tilted her head. "You wouldn't." I hit call. 911. "What's your emergency?" "Yes," I said, calm and clear. "I'd like to report a forced entry and unauthorized occupation at my private residence." And that was the exact moment her influencer smile finally dropped. It took the sheriff's office about 10 minutes to arrive. 2 deputies, one middle-aged, steady, all business, the other younger, more observant. Both in no mood for theatrics. Sierra saw them and immediately switched modes. Her phone was out again, turned toward her own tear-streaked face. "Thank God," she said dramatically. "Officers, please. He's trying to make me and my babies homeless. We had an agreement. This was our new home." The younger officer raised an eyebrow. The older one, Deputy Harris, just said flatly, "Ma'am, we'll need identification and proof of residency." I stepped forward before she could answer. "My name is Graham Larkin. I am the legal owner of this house. These individuals entered without my consent and attempted to change my locks." I showed them everything. The deed, the mortgage paperwork, the tax bills. All of it matched my ID. Deputy Harris took them calmly, flipping through like he'd done this 100 times. Sierra kept talking. "It's a family property. Dad said we could—" Harris turned to her. "Ma'am, do you have any legal documents tying you to this address?" Dad, standing by the half-finished lock, pulled a stack of papers from a briefcase. I recognized the font. Times New Roman, bold, and probably printed at whatever office supply store was closest to their last tantrum. Harris took one look and sighed. "These aren't legal deeds," he said, voice clipped. "This is a printed spreadsheet with no notary stamp, no legal filing. And this one," he tapped another page, "appears to be a flyer template." Dad tried to recover. "We just thought if we showed intent." "Intent to what, sir?" Harris asked. "To unlawfully occupy a property you don't own?" Sierra's face went pale. But she wasn't done yet. She grabbed her phone and turned it back on herself. "I just want the world to see the kind of abuse I face," she told the camera, as her youngest screamed in the background. "This is why women can't have peace." I looked at Deputy Harris. They also brought movers under false pretenses, told them this was their property. The movers, standing awkwardly by the U-Haul, nodded. "Yeah," one said, "we were hired under that assumption." "And the locksmith?" Harris asked. The man looked panicked. "They showed me papers, said it was family-owned. I didn't know. I'm stopping now, I swear." Harris gave a long, weary look. "All right. Everyone not authorized to be here, step outside. This is now an active investigation." Sierra lost it. "What? This is insane. I'm a mother. You're siding with him, the guy with no family, no legacy. I'm building something for my kids." Deputy Harris didn't flinch. "Ma'am, the only thing you're building right now is a case against yourself." That shut her up. But what came next surprised even me. As they escorted Dad and Sierra off the property, Harris turned to me and asked the question that would change everything. "Mr. Larkin, do you want to press charges?" And in that moment, as Sierra's perfectly curated world collapsed, I realized something. Sometimes doing the right thing means not just saying no. It means saying it with consequences. I decided not to press charges against the locksmith. He seemed genuinely remorseful and scared of losing his license, so I made him promise to give a full statement about how my dad and Sierra had presented those fake documents to him. That statement turned out to be the key that unlocked everything. The documents weren't just poorly made fakes. They contained forged signatures, fake stamps, and attempts to copy official county property forms. What started as family drama quickly escalated into a full legal investigation. But that was just the beginning. One unexpected twist came from a neighbor's tip, triggered by a casual comment from Sierra's 5-year-old about Mommy's secret money tricks. That led to an investigation uncovering that Sierra had been running a scam for months. She accepted sponsorships, received products for free, filmed glowing reviews, then returned the items for full cash refunds, often before the videos even went live. Over 30 companies filed complaints. Meanwhile, investigators discovered my father, Douglas Larkin, had been embezzling funds from his former company by funneling money into a fake consulting business under Sierra's name. The money was used to fund luxury shopping sprees, expensive spa days, and private school tuition for Sierra's children. Within weeks, Dad was fired, faced federal charges for wire fraud and embezzlement, and lost his prestigious country club membership. Sierra lost custody of her kids, who were placed with their biological father, now sober and stable, married to a school counselor. Photos of the children since then showed genuine happiness, not the staged smiles Sierra once posted online. As for me, I finally repainted the garage door, installed new locks, and converted a spare bedroom into a proper home office. I can finally say I feel safe. Not just inside this house, but in my life. About a month later, I got a letter. The return address was Florida, my mother's house. Sierra had fled there after the investigations, hoping to avoid press, charges, and whatever consequences she still believed didn't apply to her. The letter was handwritten, rambling, full of words like healing, family bond, and starting over. She said she'd learned her lesson, said she missed her kids, said she was open to promoting my vet clinic on her Instagram, though it had lost most of its followers by then. At the bottom, she wrote, "Please, Graham, help me find a way back." I took a photo of the letter, wrote one word across it in red Sharpie, "No," and mailed it back. It was the first and last time I heard from her. Since then, things have been quiet. The kind of quiet I fought for. I still go to work at the animal hospital. I still eat cheap takeout when I'm too tired to cook. But now, when I come home and lock the door behind me, I know I'm locking out the chaos, not living inside it. This house isn't much, but it's mine. And for the first time in my life, no one's trying to take it from me.